Second session. We'll pick up a little bit where we ended off, even though a few people weren't here. Basically introducing the alphabet as a bigger concept than just a string of letters by which you spell words. I had mentioned something about Psalm 119, 130, and just to give you, it said something in the dictionary about the phrase, the opening of words. And so the question is, how do you open a word? What does that mean? In the Stone's Tanakh, for verse 130, it says this phrase right here. We had mentioned how the word spelled Mem Pe Tav Het is the word key. So, and that the word for Pe Tav Het was open. But it also meant gateway and entrance and a few other things. So, because it meant opening of words, and the question is, well, how do you open a word? Analyzing their spelling. But the way it's translated here says, the introduction of your word illuminates, making simpletons understand. Does somebody else, maybe, Debbie, would you mind? You said you had your electronic?
Yeah.
You want to look at Psalms 119, 130 just to see a random other translation?
The only one that I can get to open is King James. Is that okay?
Sure.
Psalms 119, 130.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want me to just read just
Sure.
one? The entrance of thy words giveth light, it giveth understanding unto the simple.
Okay, so think about the entrance of your words gives light. What does that mean?
It illuminates things. It helps me understand.
What does the entrance of his words mean?
Would that mean opening them up, like learning what they mean?
Well, that's a question. So what I'm saying, here is just an example of a phrase, and we have three different translations going on here. KJV simply says, the entrance of your words. What does that even mean? What is an entrance of words? Picture entrance as a noun.
Door.
Like a gateway, the door.
Door.
Where's the door of words? Some English author wrote that as a translation of what he read in Hebrew. This is what the Hebrew actually says right here. But that's not what he said. He told you what he thinks it said, and he says, the entrance of your words. I could say, well, the grand entrance of the president, the king, the entrance of the man on the horse. That means the arrival. Is that what he's saying? Or is he saying the entrance meaning the gateway, the door? Remember we said that this word Pe Tav Het literally meant gateway, door, and that Mem Pe Tav Het is the actual word for key. So what does that word, that phrase mean in the King James translation? The entrance of your words gives light. Does anybody want to? There's no wrong answer. We're just talking about
a potential, which is I don't think this is it, but it's still potential. The coming of the Messiah.
Yes.
The entrance of his word is the light
That's
of
what
the
I was
word.
gonna ask.
the entrance of his word. Okay, now, from a New Testament Christian perspective, it is believed that the Messiah is the Word. Is that an Old Testament perspective? That the Messiah is the Word? Where does it say that?
Not in the Old Testament.
It doesn't say it in the Old Testament. So if you don't know the New Testament writings, that would not even be in your scope of possibilities.
Right.
So that's kind of the problem. If you're, say, Jewish and you read Hebrew, you have a perspective based on what you've been reading, Hebrew. If you're modern day Christian reading English, you have a completely different perspective on even the same words, because now it's referential to what you've already been told is the underlying reality. Who's to say which one's right and which one's wrong?
I know that Strong's here, it won't let me open everything, because some of it I
Okay.
can't buy, I have to have data. It describes it under Strong's as disclosure.
Disclosure.
Right.
So
The
when-
entrance disclosure, and then of words, da, bar, by implication of matter is spoken of a thing, adverbally a cause, an act, advice, affair, answer.
Hang on.
It's way too much
Hang
detail
on.
for me to do that.
Cause, what else?
There's about 30 of these words.
Effect.
Cause,
Cause,
effect,
effect, what else?
Well, it goes on and on and on. Act,
Act.
advice,
advice,
affair,
an affair.
answer, any such thing. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on and on.
Okay.
Sounds to me like instruction would fit into
Yes.
that group.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Has anybody ever heard of this real famous thing called the Order of Melchizedek?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what is the Order of Melchizedek?
You asking me?
Yeah.
We're getting it out
You're on the spot.
No pressure.
Right, it's like, from what I'm understanding, it's like the priesthood.
So you're saying that the word order equals a type, a specific exalted type, right?
Yeah.
Maybe exalted type of priesthood. Does anybody else have a better idea of what the word order, as in order of Melchizedek, means? I think this is in, what is it, Psalms 110 verse 4, I think is where that's
In
found.
Hebrews,
Huh?
it's also in Hebrews.
It's also in the book of Hebrews, but we don't have the book of Hebrews written in Hebrew. We have it in the Psalms. I'll tell you what the word is in a moment, but I'm just saying, what do you think the order of Melchizedek means?
Organized structure. I'm just going with the word order at this moment.
Order, or
Organized.
how do you organize a structure of Melchizedek?
Number them.
They are
Number who? Melchizedek?
they are established into a hierarchy.
They who?
The next word, which is the Melchizedek.
And how? So if you assume that it's a type of priesthood, then the order organized is the number, and so you could say, okay, let's make a simple graphic. You have a skeleton with
You're just showing off your art now.
well, I'm saying, okay, there's an organized structure, right? And you can count them. You can count how many bones are there. Is that what you mean by an organized structure of the priesthood? In other words, there's a head, there's this branch and that branch, kind of like a governmental system.
Sure.
Is that the order of Melchizedek?
Body, how they operate.
Okay, where in the phrase order of here they spell it like this, right? I think that's Psalms 110 verse 4, I believe. But anyway,
Yeah, it is.
behold, what it says is, behold, I have made you a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek, right? So if the order means a type, an organized structure, then somehow he's in there. So let's assume that maybe it's referring to the head, because if that's a messianic reference, and he's the top guy. Okay, how else might this word order be understood or translated?
Order of importance of roles,
Order of importance of what?
of his roles?
Order of his roles.
Yes.
Could you
he's
explain?
a king and a priest. Which one is most high?
Okay, you're talking about job description then?
Yes.
So, so the order of Melchizedek, if he says after the order of Melchizedek, how does that fit? Could you explain what you mean by that?
Well,
As
what is his most high position? What is the most important position? Him as king? or him as priest. What
So-
is his, Melchizedek, is he first and foremost a king, or is he first and foremost a priest? What is most honorable of the two?
Okay, he has made you a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. Where's the king?
Well, I'm just looking it up on here, and it says the priesthood he was both a king and dual position as king of combining.
So who was?
The
Melchizedek?
priesthood of Melchizedek is a role in Abrahamic religions modeled on Melchizedek, combining the dual position of king and priest.
Okay, so does everybody know where that comes from?
Messiah is the king and priest.
Okay, where does that come from? This is Psalms 110, but where is Melchizedek and Abraham?
In the book of Genesis 15.
Genesis 15? Okay, so if I paraphrase the story, this is the only time in the entire Bible, other than the book of Hebrews chapters 7 or 8, where the concept or even the word Melchizedek shows up. Abraham hears the story, here's the tale, the news article, that these 5 kings just came and raided this whole area of the valley, which includes Sodom and Gomorrah, where his nephew Lot was living. They took hundreds, thousands of captives, pillaged the whole place, and ran north. And so Abraham takes, I think he had 380 guys or something like that, 340, and he goes to chase them down. The book of Yashar, I believe it said there was 80,000 soldiers. 80,000 soldiers of a 5-king army had just conducted this successful raid against numerous cities, taken off all the loot, and Abraham and 300 of his friends chases them down. And he slaughtered them all. According to the book of Jasher, only a few youths, say teenagers, hopped on some camels and took off. Everybody else was wiped out. How is that possible for 300 guys to wipe out 80,000? Abraham comes back. You might guess he's exhausted. And this guy named Melchizedek comes out to meet him. And he says, hey, I perceive that the only way that you could have, I'm paraphrasing the story, I perceive that the only way that you could have done this is if the El Shaddai, the omnipotent Almighty, was obviously favoring you and conducted this slaughter in your interest. And he greets him with challah bread and wine. And they share it together. And then it says, and he gave him a tenth of everything. Who gave who what? And then the king of Sodom is observing this. And the king of Sodom says, hey, I'll give you a bunch of stuff. I'll give you a bunch of stuff too. Tell you what, why don't you keep a bunch of the loot? And Abraham says, hey, I'm not taking anything from you, lest it be said that the king of Sodom made Abraham rich. I don't want anything from you. So here, I'm just saying, think about this a minute. Why would the king of Sodom suddenly look at Abraham and say, hey, let me give you some stuff?
Because he knew he was the force to be reckoned with, because God was on his side.
Sure, that could be, but why didn't the king of Salem do that? The king of Salem walks out and brings bread and wine. Did Abraham just say, oh, wait a minute, I'm reckoning with the king of Salem, I'm going to take a tenth of everything I have and give it to him? Or did the king of Salem give a tenth to Abraham, and then the king of Sodom said, hey, I'm going to do that too? And Abraham said, no way. So what I'm saying is, how do we know happened? We hear the story later in Hebrews, which is written, Abraham is about 2000 BC. So 2,000 years after the event, we have a story in the book of Hebrews in the New Testament that says, oh, by the way, Abraham gave Melchizedek a tenth of everything. But it doesn't say that in the text. Now, to be fair, the book of Jasher says that. The book of Yashar, said that Abraham gave to Melchizedek. But Yashar is not an official book of the Bible. Is it trustworthy? But it just says he gave him a tenth of everything. But Abraham just said, I'm not keeping any of the loot. just let my 300 guys have their share, but I'm not taking anything. Well, if he's not taking anything, what do you give him 10% of? See, what I'm trying to say is, we hear certain translations, and we think we understand the story, and we think it makes sense, but when you look close, it doesn't say that. Okay, now the next place the word Melchizedek shows up is in Psalm 10, 1, verse 4. So, I'll read it from the Stone's Tanakh. And the reason I'm doing this, even though this is completely aside from what I had planned on talking about, is because it's pertinent to the opening of the words. Psalms 110 verse 4 says, Yahweh has sworn and will not relent. You shall be a priest forever because you are a king of righteousness. Oh, there's the king. But where'd Melchizedek go? What does yours say?
Yah has sworn it, and he will never retract. You are a priesthood or Cohen forever, to be compared with him.
To be compared with Melchizedek? To be compared, but this, we've always heard after the order of. So now we're saying that this word order means to be compared. Well, if the word order means a type of priesthood, that's different than being compared, and it's different than necessarily a job description, kind of, sort of, but how come this says, because you are a king of righteousness, and that says to be compared with Melchizedek, and the other one says the order of Melchizedek. So what is it? Is it comparing to a certain man, Melchizedek, king of Salem? Is it an order of a special type of priesthood? Or is it a king of righteousness? What is it? So suddenly there's three different meanings of a simple phrase. And then to make matters worse, the word order is this word here. Only here in this Psalm 10, it's spelled Dabarti. Dalet Bet Resh Tav Yod. These two last letters are a suffix, and the word Dabar means to speak or to say, and this with a kaf means you or your. So this word here, Dabarika, Yod is the prefix or the suffix letter having to do with the possession, first person of that verb. So it's like what you have said, what you yourself have said, or my words that are yours. So Debri, literally, this word here means my word or my speech. But how does my word or my speech relate to the order to be compared, a job description, a type of priesthood? It has nothing to do with that. So I could read, Yahweh has sworn and will not relent, you will be a priest forever. What is the job of a priest? To open the words, to explain what Yahweh's words really mean. And what's tzaddik? What's righteousness? In truth, without subterior motive, without trying to steal from anybody. And also the word tzaddik, righteousness, means victory, deliverance, and salvation. So you could say, Yahweh has sworn and will not recant. He has declared that you will be a priest forever, doing the real job that a priest is supposed to do, which is telling the truth about how my words bring victory. Well, that's what a priest after the order of Melchizedek should be doing, if there is such a thing as the order of Melchizedek. Because there's really no such thing as the order of Melchizedek. That's just some English invention. That's not what it says. Debarti here. Cause, effect, act, advice, affair, answer? The answer of Melchizedek? The advice of Melchizedek? The cause of Melchizedek? What's the cause of Melchizedek? To point to the truth of what these words mean. Is that a special order where they get to wear fancy aprons or special hats? What kind of priesthood is that? A priest is a priest. The word is Cohen. There's only one. That's Kaf, Hey, Nun. This word, Hey, Nun, Well, that's short for hey noon hey, right? Hey noon hey is the word hana, which means behold, gladly. Here, look, hey, this is pleasing. The word kaf hey is the word yes. So, truly, thus, verily. And then kaf noon is where we get the word can. It's pronounced can, which literally is the word yes. Or absolutely. That's just what it is. That's the reality. So the priest's job, the Kohen, is to say, behold, gladly, look, this is what the truth says. This is just simply what it is. That's the order of, and it doesn't say Melchizedek. What it says is Melchi, and then there's a space, and it's not Zedek, it's Zadik, which is Zadi Dalet Yod Kuf, Zadik, which means the righteous one. And Melchi is actually Mem Lamed Kaf Yod, which is, this is king, so it's my king, but Melech is one who takes counsel, because the word Lamed Kaf means go, or to you, or Lamed is instructions to teach and learn. So this is Mem is the place of, or the fact of. You were given instructions, there's the open hand, the kaf, about what it means to be righteous. How to conduct your life righteously is the instructions you were given. That's what the word Melchizedek means, but it's translated as either a guy's name, or a king of righteousness, or some fancy order of a special priest. And people are saying these days, oh, if you're of the order of Melchizedek, you don't have to regard the Torah. Because the Torah, according to, as they are then saying, Ezekiel 24:20 or 20:24, is bad laws that nobody can live by. Imagine that. It's being taught in Messianic circles these days that the order of Melchizedek has no regard of the Sefer HaTorah, because they're bad laws that nobody can live by. And so if you're of the order of Melchizedek, you just flow in the Spirit, and you don't have to worry about interpreting any of these words. But yet the real Cohen lives according to the instructions of righteousness, which are these words. And how do you do these words? By opening them. How do you open them? So this other phrase here, as we were starting to say, says the introduction of your words. The introduction of your words. How do you introduce his words? Well, the purpose of what we're doing here is to introduce, to become familiar with his words. Is that the same as the entrance of your words? As we read earlier, the opening of your words. So it all depends on how do you translate this word. What does a key do? It locks, it opens, somehow Petov tet. So what we could do is look in the dictionary, and Petov means forehead. Forehead. What does that have to do with opening words? Huh?
Be receptive.
Possibly. What they'll tell you, there's more to it. I don't want to elaborate on that right now, but this is, the forehead is the open expanse part of the head. Everything else has features. Some people get to have hair, you know, but the forehead is the... Huh?
You have more forehead.
That's right.
He has a
That's why
seven,
you
he has a seven
understand
head.
better.
Anyway, it's that wide open area. So literally that word has to do with something that opens up. It's something that opens up. Opening up your words, because that's the you suffix, yar. Aleph Vav Resh is the word for light, or. But the word yar, yod, I think it's yod Aleph Resh is, I think, no, nahar, the word for river, or illuminating, shining, streaming, it's this flowing. So this isn't the word light, but it's a variation because you change the Vav to a Yod, so these Yods and Vavs are like wild cards. So this, basically the illuminating Mabin. This word being is down here on the chart. It's a really pretty incredible word. Here, I'll read you what this word means. View, regard, to know, to interpolate, between, among, during, to separate, divide, distinguish, clear, evident, perceived, become wise, understood, explained, instructed, comprehension, discern, to look well to, be prudent, to think, and have intelligence.
That's not my being, not my being.
That's mabin.
Yeah. Do you understand? In Hebrew, not my being, not my being.
That's word. But see, to say understand, it's not just understand. There is another word that means understand, but it's all those things. But if you look in Strong's dictionary, it simply means between. I think it's 995. But then if you look at Strong's 996, which is a different vowel point, it has that entire list. So which is it? Between? If something opens, you've got something on this side and something on that side, or something inside and something outside, there's a reference of contrast, and to distinguish, to interpolate, to mediate, to relay, it's basically to have a perspective on what the heck is going on here. You ever remember Romper Room, that TV show with little kids? And you have a thinking cap, right? And it has a little beanie, a propeller on the thing, right?
Well, you're really dating yourself. All of us, because we know.
So when the propeller's turning, zzz, oh, you got your thinking cap, you're thinking. It's called a beanie. It's Hebrew, bean, that's the word. I am thinking. That's beanie. So mabin is the place or the occasion or to make it possible. It's the tool which facilitates. The tool which causes it to happen causes what to happen? The tool to cause the illumination, and here's the word again. No, but wait a minute, it's Pei-Tav Yod Yod Mem. This is Pei-Tav Het. Well, by looking at the dictionary, what you'll find is that Pei-Tav He is the suffix ending as the basic word, and Yod Yod Mem is a plural. Pei-Tav Yod means my, and Pei-Tav He is the feminine suffix, which is just an expression. And then if you look up this word or that word in the dictionary, it means fool, simpleton, to be seduced or enticed. How do you seduce or entice a rat to stick his head in the trap? But a nice, fragrant piece of cheese, something that he likes. It's like, ooh. He's like, wait a second. The fool, the simpleton, is the one who acts impulsively without thinking, without double checking, should I be doing this? And if you do more study on the words, that's what you'll find. But look at this, the root word is this, is men tav he. He is something open in evidence. Pei-Tav Het, the het is a fence, something closed. But here's the thing, if you have, I'll get into the alphabet in just a second, let me show you this. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Het. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. The letter H and the letter Het is in the same position. Hua, Het, Vav, Hey is the name Eve. But Eve is, so that the E, which is the fifth letter looks like an E, but it's pronounced as an H. Our letter H is the eighth letter, but it's a Het. So I'm just trying to show you a little puzzle here of what happened to the language, which is what happened to the language with Melchizedek. And this is just to say, this is why you have to think. Okay, her name is Hua, Het, Vav, Hey. This is the eighth letter, and this is this is actually the sixth letter, but this letter is pronounced as an O, a U, a V, or W. That letter has 4 different sounds. And then this letter is the fifth letter. This is our letter E, this is our letter V or U, and this is our letter H. But this one's pronounced like an H. So they took this letter H and said it's, well, because it's pronounced like that, then that must be like the letter 5, which is an E. And this is the, we'll just call it V. And then this one is an E, so we'll just say, well, that's an E too. And that's how Eve, or even Eva, in kind of the European pronunciation, is because the letter Hey is pronounced Ha. So that's how Eva became Eve, which came out of Hua, which would be pronounced C with an X, which is a Hua. That was her real name. But see what they've done? And see what they've done? And see what they've done to Debarty? So the fool, the simpleton, who just kind of, hey, it's wide open, and he goes for what's wide open. What is seduction? Hey, isn't this alluring? Hey, don't you want to go to this building? Hey, don't you want to go to this event, this person? Hey, doesn't this food look good? What did Yahweh say? Well, wait a minute. What's the difference between, hey, it's wide open, and hey, it's closed? It has to do with Yahweh's covenant relationship with his people, which is a marital metaphor. That which is closed is only for those in covenant contract with him. The fool and simpleton goes to that which is wide open, that he has no obligations, ramifications, except for maybe some social diseases later. Because this word here has to do with female form. The language gets very graphic once you start looking into Hebrew. And what Yahweh is saying is that the privilege of an intimate relationship to me is guarded. Not everybody's going to get it. It's not even accessible to everybody because I keep it under the fence, blocked. His words, though, radiate, making the fool come to understanding by thinking. If he will stop and consider, this isn't just, oh, the fool suddenly go, oh, hey, thinking, using your mind, analyzing. I had somebody say to me a few years ago, it's carnal to think. Don't think. As soon as you apply your mind, you're dragging yourself down to earth level. You should be just loftily floating in the clouds of the ether of the Ruach. And it's like, that's not what he says. Think. Even if you were a dad-blamed fool, having been seduced many times by other deities, other cultures, other words of wisdom, other enticements and lures, think about the opening of his words that are behind the fence, the Pei Tav. Well, you could say, well, Pei Tav, Tav is the sign of the covenant. Pei is the open mouth. But you don't know that because you don't know what the letters are. How do you know that what I'm telling you is the truth? The mouth that opens, the words that he gave, according to the terms of the covenant, which are blocked, only accessible to those who have decided to say, hey, I want to be your people. Moshe said, I put before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Choose life. Choose life is to enter into that fence. That's what Pesach is all about. He didn't say, hey, Pesach is this great holiday, and invite all your friends and family, put up on the internet, hey, we're having a big Passover Seder, everybody come. No, he didn't say that. He said you had to be circumcised, and you had basically sworn allegiance to the Elohim of Israel and the community of Israel to be entered into the family who's observing Pesach that night. Now, Sukkot's a different matter. That's kind of more open. But Pesach is represented by the het in this Mishkan pattern here. If you know how to read the letters and read the words, you can analyze the words, which is the opening of the words, according to the terms of the covenant, only accessible to those who have agreed to be in covenant with him. Then the words are allowed to be seen, if even the fool will think about it. So you get these doctors with letters after their name who are these great scholars of linguistic. They say they know where the language came from. They say they know what the words mean. They say they know all these great details of the analysis of the words to cause translations and doctrines. And yet, if they don't know the covenant that Yahweh swore to have with his people, they're not even on the page. They're trying to play football on a basketball court. They have no clue. They're out of the court. This het is a fence perimeter. It's the Mishkan. It's the courtyard. It's the playing field for where his words are comprehended when they're in the interpretive, you might say, there's so many different ways to read words. But when you interpret the words as per the covenant, and choose that to be the venue by which you translate them, there it is. So we're going to get to that in a minute, and I'll show you what it is, revealing that every one of these 22 letters shows you who Mashiach, Yeshua, is. We're going to get to that in a minute. But first, Jesse was going to read something with a little bit of an explanation regarding this very matter out of Isaiah 28. You want to get in frame? Okay.
Unless everybody's comfortable just looking right here.
Well, this is just for the
Oh, okay.
Video.
so that anybody who's not here, they
Online.
want to look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, it's a story of Ephraim. Everyone here is familiar with Ephraim, Manasseh, the two sons that Abba Yahweh already said they're mine, just like the rest of the sons. Woe to the proud crown of the drunkards of Ephraim. It's the way the whole chapter starts out in Isaiah 28:12. The fading flower. If its splendid comeliness that is on the head of the fertile valley, to those who are overcome with wine. So the leadership role Ephraim's supposed to be playing in this order of righteous interpretation, kingship. See, Yahweh is one who is mighty and strong, like a downpour of hail, and a destroying storm, like the flood of mighty waters overflowing and cast down to the earth with the hand. We read just something very similar to this in Isaiah 30, verse 29, yesterday. The destruction that's coming. The proud crown of the drunkards of Ephraim is trampled underfoot, and the fading flower of its splendid comeliness that is on the head of the fertile valley, like the first fruit before the summer, which when one sees it, he eats it up while it's still in his hand. And that day Yahweh of hosts is for a crown of splendor and a headdress of comeliness to the remnant of his people. We want to be in that group. And a spirit of right ruling to him who sits in right ruling, and strength to those who turn back the battle at the gate. These two have gone astray through wine and through strong drink, wandered about. Priest and prophet have gone astray through strong drink. They are swallowed up by wine. They wander through strong drink, and they go astray in vision, and they stumble in right ruling. Boy, this is just playing right along with what you're saying. For all tables shall be covered with vomit. Boy, that's a despicable image. No place without filth. So we were on this track of talking about, there's a reference to a drought, and we couldn't find that yet, but anyway, in Scripture it's referring to a drought of the word of Yahweh being heard all over the airwaves now. It's all, Hollywood, garbage and junk coming out of Hollywood, saturating the airwaves with anything but the things of Abba Yah. For all tables shall be covered with vomit, no place without filth. Then the question, whom would he teach knowledge? And whom would he make to understand the message? Those weaned from milk, those taken from the breast. For it is command upon command, command upon command, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little. For with a jabbering lip and a foreign tongue he speaks to his people, to whom he said, this is the rest, give rest to the weary, and this is the refreshing, but they would not hear. So it's this Ephraimite model that's supposed to be following in this righteous order, making decisions through their reasoning to influence the world for the true understanding and knowledge of Abba Yahweh and his stuff, as Eric likes to put it. And so this is what's not happening at the rate and the scale that, if people would come to salvation and experience this knowledge that Eric's sharing, and if we study it ourselves, to begin to comprehend it and then put it into action. It's not just to comprehend, but it's to put into action. Anyway, that was kind of where we were going earlier today. A little, line by line, and the people are having a hard time to comprehend and understand this because no one's studying it, no one's delving into the Devar, the words of Elohim. And we're going to see this more and more as time goes on.
So, you're all picked up
Sad,
there.
sad to say.
What he just read there, so Yahweh says, listen, I gave, Ephraim took over the mantle of actually the leadership of the entire family. The 12 tribes was given to Joseph, not Judah. That's a misunderstanding. It was given to Joseph, and Joseph had Ephraim and Manasseh, and in particular handed to Ephraim. And Ephraim's job is supposed to be teaching the people righteousness, but he didn't. He took the opportunity to have the money flowing in and the position of prestige to just simply get drunk and vomit over all the tables. What tables? The feasting tables where they were supposed to be teaching people Yahweh's words. And instead of Yahweh's people getting understanding of his words, they're getting Ephraim's vomit. And then Yahweh goes on to say there, he says, this is the way that I'll teach them. One translation said, line upon line and precept upon precept. So what does that mean? So I looked at that one day, and it's very interesting. Those are two very, very simple words. The word translated line is kuf vav. Now, simple grammatical structure, if it ends with a hey, it's the feminine suffix. If it ends with a vav, it's the masculine suffix. It's like in Spanish. If you write the word casa, if it ends in the a, that's the feminine suffix. If you were to write the word caso, that's the masculine suffix. And it's a different word. But it's like that has nothing to do with male and female. It's just grammatically feminine and masculine suffixes. So, if you wrote kuf hey, that's the feminine suffix, kufav, and just for what it's worth, kuf vav tav is the feminine multiple, plural, and kuf yod mem is the masculine plural. That's just another thing, it's just a suffix. But here's the point. If kuf vav literally is translated line, and then precept upon precept is spelled zadi vav. Precept. But you translated it in yours, Jesse, I think it was understanding and line? Is that what it said?
Yeah, somebody, let me go back to that.
Well,
I was looking at the
that's
strong-
okay. Oh,
the command upon command, line upon line. So it's command.
Command and line. This precept would be the word command and that's line. Okay, so here's the thing. If this letter is the suffix ending, which simply, as the masculine suffix, is translated as either he or it what? This letter then is the whole communication. Or this is the whole communication. In other words, if you know what that letter means, you'll know what he's talking about. How do you know what the letter means? It's not a word, it's just one letter, which is used as a word. It's kind of like in English, if I say I, you know that that's self-referential to the person speaking. It's one letter, which is a whole word concept. So, why would Yahweh say, the way that you will learn about me, or to know me, is you got to understand what kuf is, and you got to understand what zadi is. But if you don't know the Hebrew alphabet, you can't know kuf or zadi. Cryptically, then what he's saying is, if you want to know the truth, instead of eating the vomit from Ephraim, the so-called priest, thinking that he's this fancy order of Melchizedek, so he doesn't have to regard the Torah, if you want to understand my words of the Torah and eat from my banqueting table, you got to understand these two letters. But here's the point. You can't understand those two letters unless you know where they fall in the 22-letter sequence. I can tell you that they say that Kuf is the back of the head, and Zadi is a fish hook. So what? What does that mean? But if you start seeing how it plays in, it's more than that. It's not even hardly that. Okay. Aleph is an ox. Bet, house. Gimel, camel. Dalet, door. Hey, that's the word actually the. Vav is the word and. Zion is what?
Weapon.
Weapon.
Het, I just said earlier, a few minutes ago, the het is what?
Fence.
Fence. Tet's actually full basket. Yod is a hand, which almost like a wrench, or a hand that's grabbing something. Kaf is the palm of a hand, so here you have the thumb and 4 fingers. So both these 2 letters are hands. Lamed, which is a shepherd's staff. Mem is water. Nun is something which jumps, and so they say it's a fish. We'll just say jumps. A fish that jumps out of the water. Samek, what does that look like? If you just saw that. I just had a picture of it up on the board a few minutes ago.
A great.
Skeleton. You see the backbone of the rib cage?
Yeah.
So if you were just going to draw a skeleton, not of a human, could be a lizard, could be a fish, could be a bird, but that's your basic structure of.
Support.
It's a support structure. So Samek literally is a support structure. Ayin is, what does that look like? Looks like an eye. That's what it is. Ayin is literally the word for eye. Pei is a mouth, which I already said is that which opens. So not only is it a mouth as a noun, but it's something that opens, which is the verb. Zadi, remember we said fish hook? But it's something that has something sprouting off the side. Sprout, which a fish hook is a picture of. But it's not necessarily the hook as much as what the hook is a picture of. So some people say tet's a snake. Why would it be a snake? Because it's round. Snakes aren't round. Snakes are a line. Oh, but snakes coil. Oh, okay. So once in a while a snake might decide to curl up, and so therefore something as round as a snake. That's the way people think. And that's what you're being told if you try to look this stuff up. Not necessarily true. Kuf, remember I said is the back of the head. And then Resh is simply head. What does this look like? Besides a W. What picture does that look like?
Teeth.
Teeth, that's what it means, teeth. And then Tav, which is a sign or a mark, which you could say is like a target, or it's actually a marked, something marked is a target. And this Aleph is not just an ox, but it's an arrowhead shape. So this arrow, which was designed to shoot to this target and hit the bullseye, is Aleph Tav. In Genesis 1:1, as we mentioned, there's 7 words in Hebrew. Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning, created Elohim. So in Hebrew, they offset noun and verb. In English, we say, in the beginning, God created, but here they say, created Elohim. So the noun comes after the verb. And then there's one word. So right here you have Bereshit, bara, Elohim, and then there's this word, Aleph Tav, the heavens, and Aleph Tav, the earth. Hashemayim, La'et, Ha'aretz. You could draw this as a menorah, where the center, what they call the shemesh, which is the same word for sun, which is the same word for servant, the servant candle is the one they light, which lights all the others. So one little model picture is that Yeshua, claiming to be the Aleph Tav in the book of Revelations, is the one who is the servant, his father's servant, who comes to light. I'm the vine, you're the branches. Your job is to bear fruit. That's what he said. So the branches of the vine bear fruit. So if we are the branches rooted in his word, rooted in his kingdom, his father's the husband one who trims the branches. So once you start looking in Hebrew, there's all these picture types which play into all the New Testament stories as well as all the Old Testament stories, and literally every single word of Hebrew can be fit into numerous different types of patterns once you see them. But I'm just saying that here the Aleph Tav, if you say, oh, Yeshua claimed to be that Aleph Tav. 7 words in Genesis 1:1, that word is never translated. Not into Greek, not into Latin, not into English. My brother was just having a Bible study a couple weeks ago, and they talked about Genesis 1:1. He didn't mention that there was an Aleph Tav. And so after the Bible study, he says, hey, did you know there's one Hebrew word that's never translated, and it's the center, the fourth of 7 words. And he says, how am I supposed to know that if it's never translated? Good point. Why isn't it ever translated? Why are we mentioning it now? I said, well, you could look it up on the internet and look up Aleph Tav, and you'll probably find it. A guy named Bill Sanford, was he Mississippi, I think? Wrote a book called The Messianic Aleph Tav Scriptures, M-A-T-S, MATS. And he put back, he researched and found every single time the Aleph Tav was used in the Scripture, thousands of times. And it was always taken out, because in English it doesn't mean anything. Imagine that. Taking out the word Aleph Tav, which means, I saw this verse in Isaiah, I believe it is, says, as I have planned. Who's I? This I, who is now, Aleph is the prefix letter that refers to I. So you have Ehyeh, Ani, Anoki, Etid. You have these different words in Hebrew that start with the letter Aleph that mean me, the guy who's talking. So if I'm going to make a big assumption here and say because the alphabet starts with an Aleph, then this letter is talking about the I who has the archer, starting with the letter A, like the author, like the administrator, like the architect, English words that start with an A, who takes the idea upon himself to shoot this arrow at this target. So the Aleph is self-referential of the guy who put the whole thing into motion, otherwise known as Elohim, also starting with the letter Aleph. So I can now just right there say, I'm going to project that the alphabet was invented by the guy that refers to himself as the Aleph, I, meaning him. We're referencing him, but he calls himself I. And therefore he wrote this. And so the verse that says, as I have planned, so shall it be. As I have purposed, so shall it come about. The word that goes out of my mouth will not return void. It will accomplish what I set it forth to do. So he's showing us, hey, if you know what the letters mean, that's Aleph Tav, Aleph Tav, Aleph Tav. And so for Yeshua to say, I am the Aleph Tav. So according to Bill Sanford, every time you see Aleph Tav, oh, that's Yeshua. Well, kinda. Is this Yeshua? Well, sure, he's the Word made flesh, and he's the Aleph Tav. That's what he claimed to be, the first and last, beginning and the end, the Alpha and Omega. But what is he saying is, I'm the guy who initiated the plan and will see it through to completion. I'm the guy that shot this arrow, that aimed and set up that target, took aim, and I'm the guy that's going to make sure that the world can't end until that happens. So every time in Scripture you see the phrase Nam Yahweh, it's translated the word of the Lord, or thus saith Yahweh. He's actually saying, hey, listen, when I said it, you can bank on it, you can count on it. It must happen. There is no alternative. So when he says, hey, when I said I was going to curse Israel if they betrayed me, he did. Look at the last 3,000 years of world history. Read Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28. That's world history. It's exactly that. But he said, I also told my people, according to my covenant, that if they return to me with all their heart and all their soul, Deuteronomy 30, then I will stop the curse and then pour out gratuitous favor on them And then you get Jeremiah 30, where Ephraim wakes up, comes to his senses. It's the prodigal son story of when Yeshua gave that tale of the prodigal son who had gone out and squandered and lost everything and living with the pigs, wishing he could eat the food of the pig. He said, man, I'm so starving, hungry, I wish I could eat the food of one who returns. The word pig in Hebrew, chazir, chetzayin yoresh, means one who returns. So here's another word play. The prodigal son sees what pigs are eating, which is great food that just came from the grocery that they're not going to sell, but the pigs got to eat it and get big so they can slaughter them. And he said, man, all this good food going to waste. I wish I could eat. Why don't I go home to my father's house and eat the food of one who returns? Why do we have to eat from the tables of Ephraim's priests that are vomiting over stuff that all they're doing is drinking for themselves into oblivion, and they have no clue what this stuff is? Again, the scripture says, if they speak not again, according to the Torah and the testimony, there's no light in them. And Yahweh said in the verse in Psalm 119, 130, if you open the words, there comes the light streaming out if you will think and consider what has he held behind the fence of his covenant to those who have chosen life. It's not the same life of gratuitous decadence of what's become our priests and pastors and apostles and whoever else claims to be the big shots running around telling everybody what's so, and it's not. I propose that to know what these letters mean is the opening of the words. So here's what we have. A couple different ways to read it. Let me ask you this. Think for a moment. Could you tell a story? Just think. How would you weave these together? Once I show you otherwise, you'll maybe never be able to do this. I'll give you one opportunity to ponder in your ignorance, which is to say you don't know. It's not a put-down saying you don't know what I'm about to show you. So here, this is your last chance. What story could you weave these together? Ox, house, camel, door, the and weapon fence. Can you tell a story? Let me put it a different way. The word Bereshit starts with the letter bet, and it happens to be an enlarged letter bet. It was always drawn really big. Bereshit. Why? Bet means house, but it also means to materialize or put into cosmos, matter, form. It's the universe of matter. The other side of the letter bet is the maker of the house, the creator of the universe. Aleph is not ever pronounced. It's a silent letter. So we don't know him. We can't see him. He's infinite. He's incomprehensible. He's immaterial. But this is material. So the creator of the universe decided to put himself into some aspect of physical matter. Whatever that means and however he did it is another conversation. But the omnipotent, eternal creator of all things in bet matter, I am, provided himself some means of a foot to travel down to, like this is the top half of an hourglass. So you have something from this realm coming down to something in this realm. So he came from heaven to earth, appearing as the man who would be put to the weapon, put inside of a tomb, the round rock rolled in front of it, and a seal holding it shut, all for you. The first 10 letters is this was I'm going to do. This is a suffix of a word, so this is like a word here, means my. An aleph is a prefix letter, means I will, or I am. I will do this for your sake. The word bet gimel dalet means to camouflage or to conceal in a garment. Hey Vav Zion, dalet means to diminish. The word dalal, dalet lamed, or dalet lamed tav, or dalet lamed lamed, to be reduced, to be weak or poor or humble. Hey Vav Zion, Pilate said, hey, look what the weapon that we put to this man. Man, number 6. I who am the creator of the heavens and earth, will put on a garment that looks like a man, and then have that camouflage suit ripped off by these weapons, put into a tomb, the round rock rolled in front of it, and sealed shut. That's Yod, He, Vav, Shin, Ayin, Yeshua. There's the Messiah. Now some people will say, hey, you're messing with the meaning of those letters. Yeah, but those are the meaning of the letters. There's other meanings of the letters, like ox, house, camel, door, the, and weapon, fence. But if I describe it this way, there's him sending the Messiah. And then I can say, well, why would he do that? The word spelled het tet is the word for sin. Het tet yod means my sin, but it's also sin offering, and it's also to incur guilt. Well, because I sinned, I incur guilt, but as my sin offering incurs my guilt for me, and it also means to be cleansed and to find favor. So this guy, who came down to earth from the infinite realm on the other side of creation, before the letter Bet in the Bible that starts with Bet, the plan from the beginning of the world, from before the beginning, was to come down here in the form of a man and be put to the weapon and entombed as my sin offering, so that I can find favor being cleansed. Finding favor from who? The one that I betrayed, which was the one who set this whole thing up. So, there are people on the internet saying the prophecies of the scripture that Yeshua can be the Messiah, they're all fake. That's because they're not really prophecies. They all have to be encrypted, decrypted. They have to be sleuthed out. And so for the Christian church to say, hey, there's 200 or 300 prophecies which Yeshua fulfilled, you can't identify them unless you already have the answer before you go looking for the question. And so that's why certain people on the internet are saying it's all a fraud, it's all bogus, it's all untrue. But the truth is right here in the alphabet, according to what I perceive. It's right here. Who's this? Who is each one of these letters? Yeshua claimed to be the man, the Son of Man. Hey is revealed as. He also claimed to be the door. Gimel is not just a camel, but it's a foot. This guy is the guy who's saying, hey, here's the door to walk back to the house of the Father. So you can read the alphabet both directions. And the letter Zion is not just put to the weapon, but like I said, it's like the officer's hat, it's like the crown, it's like, hey, look, see this guy, see this guy, see this guy. And when you say, if the word spelled Zion, hey, means this, then because Zion, Aleph Tav also means the word this, but Aleph Tav is the whole shooting match from here to there, then I can say Zion Aleph Tav means, hey, look at this big arrow pointing at the guy who was the Vav put to the Zion. Look at this. And even Pilate said, behold this man. Hey, behold, Zion, this, Vav, man. So isn't it incredible that Yahweh used Pilate to fulfill this as a prophecy? Ripping off this, his camouflage concealed garment of his earth suit. Coming from heaven to earth like the Dalet, and I'm the Dalet by which you can get back to the Father's house, change the dominion, the realms from earth to the heavens. And it's all right there. The word Kaf Lamed as a word, like that's a word and like that's a word, this means all. But then Lamed Kaf means to you or for you, if you read it that way. The word Yod Kaf Lamed, this is the working hand of Yod, which is the powerful hand, and it means to have power to prevail, to have the capacity to contain it all. He prevailed over being put into the tomb. There's a message there. If you take away the Yod, to say, well, you don't put your hand, and you look at Kaf Lamed Mem, it's where we get the word calm or calamity, which means put to shame and everything fails, everything stops. So I can read into this to say, put your hand to doing all that he told you to do, which is the Torah, and you will have the power and capacity to prevail. because lamed mem can be read as the suffix meaning unto you in the plural, so unto y'all, or for your sake. So in order that for our sake that we could contain it all, he went there first to pave the way and to carve out the capacity, like the manger, the bread trough, you might say, so that even if we have to enter into the realm of death as well, he's already been there and hollowed it out and brought to initiate us through. Mem nun is where you get the word for manna, which literally means where, or from where, because mem is a place and nun is that which jumps out. And where do you come from? Nicodemus came talking to Yeshua and says, hey, we've been watching you, and we know that nobody can do the things you do, and you must have come from heaven. You must have come from the Father. We know that you must be the somebody in human form, embodiment, coming down to our realm, because we see what you've been doing. That's John chapter 3. That's another part of the story. But where is this from? What's going on? And from the depth of the shame, kalam also means shame and put to disgrace. From Yeshua being ripped to shreds, brought to shame and humiliation, he had the power and capacity to prevail through. Like mem is a womb. It's to be opened up like an egg broken open. And then nun is jumping out. So jumping out, then you have this word for the psalmic, which is a picture of the menorah. And psalmic ayin basically is a manifold to diversify like a wing. It's spread out. Instead of being like a one closed wing, it's open and spread like a car manifold. And the idea that Yeshua said, hey, if this seed remains single, it's unto itself. But if the seed were to die and drop into the ground, it'll sprout and become a plant that bears fruit and yields many, 30, 60, 100-fold. That's a picture of what these letters mean. This is the vine and branches. This is not only an eye, but it's a fruit with a seed. So it's a picture of this vine bearing fruit with the seed for multiplication. The mouth eats the seed. You also have this pattern of he is put into the tomb. Just to kind of jump ahead a little bit. Kaf and Lamed are one concept of Torah. Kaf is open hands. It's lines of instruction. It's the script words that you write. Lamed is a shepherd's staff, but literally means teach and learn. Teach and learn the written lines of instruction. Mem nun is one concept, which is a pool of water and that which comes out. An attitude of nurturing the seed that was planted, which is the Torah. So this has to do with our attitude regarding the seed that was planted. And then you have Samikai and Pei actually working as a three-piece unity, two-piece, three-piece, where basically choose life. So Het goes back to the, like I said, Moses put before us, choose life, blessing or cursing. So if this is to choose life, Pesach, entering the kingdom. Read the Torah. Unleavened bread is matzah. The word matzah also means, like the letter Zadi that we started with, instructions, precepts, commands. It also means find out how to do something. The word matzah literally means find out how to do something. Regard his commands. That's what the festival of unleavened bread is about. Something's cooking or burning, or just be aware, I'm not sure. Mem nun then lines up with Shavuot, which is 50 days of counting, which is a pregnancy, which is a gestation period. So here's the first three spring feasts: Passover, unleavened bread, and Shavuot. Then you've got the three fall feasts: Yom Teruah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shemini Atzeret. So here's the festivals embedded within the alphabet. These three, we've got Yeshua being crucified and put into the tomb for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and then what did he do? He resurrected. He sprouted back to life. It's not a fishhook. It's the Messiah resurrecting from the dead. After he resurrected, 40 days later, he's talking to his disciples, and he floats up into the heavens. And then the angel showed up and said, hey, what are you looking at? What do you mean, what are we looking at? He resurrected from the dead and he floats up. This letter kuf means to rise up. It's shaped like billowing clouds and an exclamation point. Like a pillar of fire and pillar of smoke. Like a question mark, pillar of smoke and exclamation point. So I use that motif on some of the drawings. That's him rising up. But kuf also not only means back of the head, it means that which follows. It's also the word for monkey, which has this long arm or this long tail. It's a long reach into the future. The word Yaakov has to do with the heel, or that which follows, like footprints as you're walking. It's something later. It's something later on. So after he rose from the dead, he ascended, kuf, but the word makom, kom is kumi, which is also not only to arise, but it's to be planted, the place. Everything about the definition of that word means, is there a question? Look right here, this place, just like he said in his precepts. So this lines up actually with the Ark of the Covenant and this other pattern. So if there's any question, look right here, what did he put into the Ark of the Covenant? Guess what? The 10 words, the 10 matters, the 10 debarim, the debarti. The word translated order of Melchizedek are these things stuck inside the Ark of the Covenant, which is the bullet point at the end of this big exclamation in question, which is the kuf. Which is, Jesse read, is simply translated line. And the resurrection of the Messiah from being dead 3 days and 3 nights is simply translated precept. And when he comes back, Resh, the exalted head, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, the English version of that teeth. Sheen is the monogram, the single letter of El Shaddai. Because the word Shaddai is pronounced is Sheen Dalet Yod. Sheen is not just teeth, but it's also fire. It's that which consumes and devours. When he comes back, as Jesse was reading, what's he going to do to his enemies? It's all over the scripture. When he comes back, somebody's got hell to pay. And it's not us if we're regarding his words. Tav, and that's the covenant. That's the deal. That's the plan. So here, what's the plan? I'm going to come from heaven to earth, disguised as a human, put to death, 3 days and 3 nights, rise from the dead, and then ascend, come back as full blazing glory, as the Rosh, the head, thus fulfilling the covenant. So there's the Messiah. But you already knew that. But you didn't know Hebrew. But that means you do know Hebrew. You already know Hebrew. You just didn't know that you can appropriate those letters to Yeshua. But if you appropriate the letters to Yeshua, you already know Hebrew. Now you just got to figure out how to overlay that into the words with all these other meanings. That's where it starts getting complex. But it's Yeshua. It's the contract deal that we had with Yahweh. In which case I could read these letters hundreds of different ways. But here's the key. The key, the mem pe tav het. The key, that which opens and that which closes. If you don't regard Yeshua as the one that these 22 letters are about, you will be led astray. So, in Daniel 12:4, he says, Gabriel speaking to Daniel says, hide the words and seal the book. Het tav mem and Samik tav mem. The word tav mem is the word for perfect, which is similar to shalom, which is similar to bar, which is pure and clean. But het is a fence, and Samik is a skeleton, an engineered structure. So Daniel was told to put the meaning of the words behind a fence by changing their engineered structure. So what I think Daniel did is he made the Aleph look like this, and the Bet look like that, and the Gimel, the Gimel Paleo Gimel has a foot on it, sorry. The Gimel looked like that, and the Dalet, oh wait a minute, sorry, it's modern with the foot, what the?
Yeah, there you go.
The Dalet, the Hey, Vav, the Zion, Ket, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samik, Ayin, Pei, Zadi, Kuf, Resh, Sheen, Tav. This is what I think happened. By Daniel changing the letters to that shape and calling them flame letters, the only way to know what they mean is to have somebody tell you the esoteric, the hidden secret knowledge of why they have those shapes. And there's people on the internet and books where you can read that. But by looking at the pictographic letters, they're clearly, I think, self-explanatory what they're talking about. Hide the words and seal the book until the time is spelled Ayin Dalet, Ayin Tav. Ayin Dalet is the word until, Ayin Tav is the word time. But if you know what these letters mean, this is an eyeball and that's a door. This is an eyeball and that's a target or a mark. Well, gee, I can write this. A musical note, that's a sign, that's a mark, but it doesn't have any value until well, you can think it's, but you still don't, oh, now as soon as I put oh, now I know what note it is. I can hit that note once I give it some registration.
If you understand it.
If you understand it. The Torah is the lines, the kaf, the open hand, and the signature of understanding is the lamed. Once you do that, then the letters, which are marked inside, every letter is like a note. Every letter has a value, but if you put it in the proper registration, then you can read it. So the registration is this. Here's another encrypted message. Hide the word and seal the book until the time of the end. Until the time, what does that mean? Ayin Dalet, understand the door. What door? Here's the door. What door? Yeshua claimed to be the door. So understand that every letter is a reference of Yeshua. And that Yeshua is the guide by which every letter gets its understanding. Because Yeshua claimed to be the door. So if I appropriate each one of these letters in the identity of Yeshua, I can understand the alphabet. If Yeshua is telling the truth. But if, like some people are saying, there is no Messiah, there is no Jesus, there is no Messiah, the whole thing's a lie, then everything I just said, what was I saying? The page at the end of the philosophy book? After you get to the whole textbook?
Everything you have just read could have been a lie.
Everything you just said could have been a lie. So there are people, hey Michael Brown, hi Michael Heiser, everything you just heard me say is a big dirty lie and I'm deceived, according to some people. But there's Yeshua, and I could elaborate deeper and deeper and deeper with hundreds of words, thousands of verses, many layers deep. This is just an average of maybe 40 layers deep, proving the whole thing. It could have been 3 times that many. It's all consistent. I'm convinced this is the truth. I'm convinced this is the opening of the words that Daniel was told to hide since about 500 BC. It's been roughly 2,500 years since these letters were changed into these letters. An interesting thing, for whatever it means, Moshe was about 1500 BC, so it's been, now we're about 2000, 2018, so it's been about 3,500 years since Moses. In the Paleo, there's no Sophite letters, but all the letters have a number value. And if you count up the 5 letters that are the Sophite alphabet, like I said, they were capital letters, and if you give them a numerical value, they happen to be 500, 600, 700, 800, 900. And then Aleph is the 1,000. If you total those up, guess what? It's 3,500. Now, why would that be? Is there a message in 3,500 being the Sophite letters? They're like a little mini alphabet of 5 letters. Is there a message telling us that, gee, I think that Moshe had something to do with inventing this alphabet shape of letters? And if he did, 3,500 years later, that's the time of the end? Well, that's right now. That's a whole other theory, but what I'm saying is, it's interesting just to see things line up. The point is, if you understand that every letter is a mark or a sign with meaning, and that the meaning, the door to understanding the meaning, is the door back to the Father's house, which is the door that looks like or claimed to be the man that even Pilate validated was the one that they put to the weapon, and then put into the tomb, and so forth. There's the meaning of the letters. So to have this be the incredible occasion, Eureka, I found it, that's even the word Ayin Resh Kaf, like the word Erictology, it just means, what was the phrase we had last night? Great revelation. Eureka. It's Hebrew, Ayin Resh Kaf. It's all in here. It's just astounding. Anyway, time at the end. Do we have questions or comments from anybody?
But if this is so obvious, then why is it not recognized
Indeed.
by most Hebrews?
I could ask that same question hundreds of times. I haven't got an answer yet. Other than the fact that, what was it? Hard hearts, drunkenness, and refusal being stiff-necked? That's 3 reasons.
Because we've been taught other things.
There's a 4th. There you go. We have inherited lies.
Confused by other stuff.
We've inherited lies from our ancestors. Jeremiah 16:19, I think that is. Yes?
Yeah.
Debbie?
No, I was wondering, especially for those who have grown up with ancient Hebrew, how can they not see this?
Because their rabbis tell them, the man that I just declared to be this guy is a scandalous infidel that ought to be boiled in hell in excrement. That's what they say of Jesus. So they refuse
Because he was faking? to be the
because
Messiah
they
in their
have
minds?
inherited lies about him by either history, the Christian church, how he was represented, what the rabbi said, blah, 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 blah. Who knows?
Takanot.
Takanot, which is customs and traditions. We've inherited tradition. This was taken away from us. The reason I just tried to show you, I went over kind of fast, the proof of this is it's the 7 festivals. The 7th-day Sabbath day lines up with this letter and this letter, which lines up with the crucifixion and the resurrection. The 7th-day Sabbath. But the entire Christian church for 2,000 years, thank you, Constantine, has been ripped off and lied to about that. And we were never allowed to see the festivals, so even the Christian church can't see this either.
And the Orthodox don't study the paleo. And the seminaries don't
When did that
teach the
stop?
paleo.
When did that stop?
As far as I know, when Daniel changed his flame letters, when he was told by Gabriel to do so in 500, the era of 500 BC,
Seal the book.
And the purpose for Daniel being told to do that,
was to keep us all ignorant for the last 2,500 years because our forefathers to Yahweh.
yeah, but why was Daniel told to do that?
That's in the story if you read it further.
Consequence. It was consequence.
Consequence.
Their
The curse
actions.
inherited over the generations of our forefathers, but here we stand, the 2030-year curse as of 2010, that's another story, we can go into that later, but here we stand on the outside of that obfuscation of being thrown into the enclosure that couldn't be opened. And I can show you in Daniel 12 a meaning of all the letters, but that's another time.
So it's kind of like that's the consequences, so now the result of that is we have to work harder to find him?
Well, only here we are. He's right here. You didn't have to work very hard, you just had to sit here for a couple hours.
Well, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
also like an
sitting here and
opportunity.
listening for a couple hours does not mean I'm going to walk out and be able to reproduce this in my own. Right.
Yeah, but it'll, hopefully the truth will percolate in your spirit.
Yeah.
Take percolating in your spirit is mem, and what comes out is the noon. But that's that. I could show you every letter, but that's beyond what this moment. Anyway, anybody else want to say
So
anything?
the Psalm 119, 130, entrance of thy words giveth light and giveth understanding to even the simple. since I've been studying Eric's work for the last 10 years, if you try to get in touch with your spirit woman, your spirit man, and look through those periods of days in the desert with Moses and the 12 tribes, and you see the research Jim and Penny Caldwell have done. Are you familiar with Jim and Penny Caldwell? Split rock research. Highly recommend everyone observe what they found in the desert, etched in the rocks, the thousands and thousands of arrowheads, which I'll get to a little bit later tonight, the 12 pillars, the sacrificial altar,
The
sandaled feet etched in rocks all the way around the entire peninsula
Of Saudi Arabia.
of Saudi Arabia, and then the charbroiled tops of Sinai and Horeb, the rock at Rephidim. You know, these were the ways to get messages across, to gain understanding, is using ancient symbols. But it was so effective because it is so simple. It's just we make it hard in our minds until we really learn what these 22 characters look like in their primitive forms. Once you get there, then you really start to see how all this starts to gel together and how the root words come. And so this revelation has been there all along. It's just we have to take a step back. And we really have to look more primitively at the whole picture. And that clean relationship that they had after the altar to the golden calf incident, and the bitter waters incident, and the 3,000 getting killed and buried in one day. Those graves are still there, by the way, and the tombstones that go with them. Of course, they're not tombs, really.
So, anyway, we got to close off here for this, but as Queen Esther said, for such a time as this, we are highly favored this time, this opening. What do we do with it?
And it's for the remnant. You know, the masses are not going to get this. It's the remnant time. We are in the remnant time.
And the current churches are preventing them.
Oh, absolutely.
All
I
of them.
wonder if some of the people today even know they're preventing it because it's been buried for so long.
Probably not.
They don't even know.
Anyway, I'm going to turn this off. Shalom.
Well, I don't know.